Welcome back to the Best Life Code with Dr. Rudy. How are you?
What's going on, Vivek? I'm doing great. Took a little summer vacation and I enjoyed it, but I'm back ready for more.
While you were away, you know what? The internet was going crazy on a big topic, which I want to discuss today with you and get your insights. Um, but before we go into the topic, I'm hoping you got fully rejuvenated. Dr. Rudy is back to take the world again.
100%. I work hard, but I play hard. So I had a great vacation.
That's fantastic. That's always good. All right. So, you know, there is obviously you are age management or aging management, longevity, that's your field. So there is a lot of hype on the internet. And the big craziness is, I always tell my wife, I'm like, I almost have two masters and even I struggle what's happening knowing those information, right? So can a drug really slow down aging? And there's a big debate. Everyone is talking about it, from transplant meds turning to, turn to youth, and then diabetes pills, obviously now trending on TikTok. The world of longevity pharma is exploding. That's the term. And in this episode, I want you to really separate the science from really the snake oil, right? Like that's what the problem is. So let's start with what's behind the hype. Is it any of this is legit, or what's like the blanket statement? Does it work?
Well, first we're going to say, right? So there's a lot of things on social media and a very big interest in longevity medicine now. And this interest has been sparked by biohackers, which I'm a part of the community. I always say that. I'm a biohacking MD. And when you think about my traditional training, we never talked about longevity. Traditional medicine is only preoccupied with preventing disease or not even preventing, curing disease. It's an acute care. We're not that good at prevention. But even as a primary care doctor, I did a lot of preventive medicine, but it's very superficial. And that's what brought me to the field of wellness medicine, optimization, regenerative medicine, all of those words. And now I added longevity as part of my specialty because the biohacking world is saying, man, if we feel that good, right? I'm 55 now. I'm on testosterone. I'm on supplements. I fast. I lift weights. I feel great. My patients are 70, 75 years old on hormone. They feel good. Now they're like, if I feel that good, I want to live longer. And this is where the concept of health span comes in. It's not just how long you're going to live. It's how many good years do you have left in you. If I'm in a nursing home, I'm also the medical director of a nursing home in Miami. If I'm in a nursing home, I'm in pain or I have dementia, I don't want to live long. So I feel like the movement of longevity has come around because people are feeling better. People are biohacking to be better. Since you feel better, you want to be better. And then now with the explosion of AI, with the explosion of genomic medicine, where we understand the human genome and we're seeing what's possible, now we're seeing the possibility. And with gene medicine, the advances are happening so much that really I go to multiple longevity conferences where all the big scientists will tell you, we are getting very close to being able to extend lifespan to maybe 100 to 120 years. So the goal is, I love when they say that, don't get hit by a car the next 5 to 10 years. Find a way to survive. Because if you can survive the next 10 years, I really feel that we're going to have the technology to extend lifespan, to extend health span for much longer. And what are we going to use for this? Everything we've always talked about, right? Nutrition, hormones, because as we get older, what happens when we get older? Just like a car, our organs don't function as well. Just like a car, the parts don't work as well. In a car, it's easy to replace it. In a human, it's not. We can't replace. So we try to get the right medication to make the old organs function better. But now what's happening is with AI and with CRISPR, with gene editing, we can see that we can change our genes and transcribe for new so we can eventually get to this. So this is almost science fiction, but it's a science fiction that's very close. And what we're going to discuss today, it's what medications, what compounds have the most science that can show increase in longevity.
Yeah. And I mean, you have also said it from your own experiences too, right? Like, yes, we're going to live longer now. Who's going to focus on the brain health? And that's why I love it that you and your wife have, launched that new venture, which, again, a shout out to that, to the Brain Health Lab. And, so that's fully functional now, right?
Fully functional brain fitness lab. And again, it's all about neuroplasticity. And we started talking about neuroplasticity because neuroplasticity, as we get older, we're losing nerve cells. We're losing connection in our brain. But the brain is an amazing organ, like we discussed before. The brain never loses the ability to form new connections. Not every organ does that. Most of our organs, for example, our kidneys, as we age, our kidney function decreases. We don't really have a way to reverse that. But the brain can be, when stimulated properly, it forms new connections. So neuroplasticity, to me, it's a whole science, a whole medical specialty of its own, but something that's important because as I'm getting older, yes, I can maintain my muscle mass. I can maintain my organ function. But what if my brain doesn't work? I don't want that. I don't want to have a six pack and I don't know anybody's name.
Yeah. No, no, you're right. This really stuck with me. I tell everyone this exact same thing, and I say, like, you know what, this is the fact, and Dr. Rudy stated in our show, and this is what he said, and everybody agrees to this too, right? Because this is a fact, right? Also, we are in this phase right now where all the experimentation is happening, right? We are just close to cracking that we will live more. So this hasn't happened before. So there is a whole new bunch of things evolving and will evolve in next 5 to 10 years, which is what you were saying. But let's get specific. So, can you walk us through really the big three, right? Like, and I hear this again from a person who's really on the patient side versus not not on the physician side. So Rapamycin, Metformin, and NAD plus boosters. Can you start with one of this and go into basics to what are they? How are they believed to work on aging? A little bit insights and what's real, what's not. Just clarify for everyone.
I think some of the most searchable keywords in social media. This is where every conference that I go to, we talk about those big three when it comes to longevity. So first, we're going to start with rapamycin. So rapamycin is one of those drugs that longevity specialists either love it or hate it. So rapamycin is a medication that we use actually has been FDA approved in cancer care. It's good for cancer treatment. It's an immunosuppressant that we use for in transplant medicine. They also use it when you put a stent in the heart. They usually will coat that metal stent with rapamycin because it prevents blood clotting again. So it has multiple FDA-approved uses. But now, what is the role of rapamycin in anti-aging, in longevity? First, let me tell you, rapamycin was first discovered. It's a fungus that was discovered in Eastern Island. The name of the Eastern Island is Rapa Nui. So that's where the name rapamycin comes from. And actually, while they were doing rapamycin, they found that rapamycin has a specific target in the body, and they call that target MTOR, MTOR. That stands for mechanistic target of rapamycin. And MTOR is for cellular growth. As we are young, we need to grow. Our MTOR is very active. It grows cells, it grows muscles, it grows everything. But as we age, we don't want growth to always be on. So you want to think about cells having an on and an off switch. The on switch is mTOR. But if you're always on, that's how cancer grows also. Because the cells multiply like without control. So yes, when we're young, we want as much mTOR. You want the cells to multiply. You want your muscles to grow, your bones to grow, you get taller. But as we age, we don't want mTOR to be that active. So what rapamycin is an inhibitor of mTOR. So it's almost a temporary off of the growth cycle. And that's how it's an immunosuppressant. When you take it, your white cells are not as active, so you can do transplant, can treat some cancers. So I want everybody to listen, think about rapamycin almost as a temporary off switch to cellular reproduction, to cellular growth. So as we age, we don't always want to do growth, but rapamycin has been the most consistent over different species that shows benefits for longevity. It shows benefits for longevity in multiple worms. Worms divide very quickly, so it's easy to study longevity on them. There's actually a study now where they're studying rapamycin for dogs. And I know some websites are already claiming the study results are not ready yet, but apparently there were very positive results. So there are websites selling rapamycin to extend the life of dogs. So rapamycin has been the one drug that has shown benefits over different species. Now, there's been some human studies. Most of the human studies were observational, and they were very pretty small trials. They saw that patients who were taking rapamycin had slower immunity aging, slower immune aging. So that's again, they were like, we've proven it in mice. We've seen it in primates. The big question is, what's the dosing? There's no consensus on what it should be. The one thing we know, for example, if you take it for a transplant, you got a kidney transplant, they put you on rapamycin, it's high dose and you take it every day. In anti-aging, what is recommended, although it's not FDA approved, what is recommended to take small dose intermittently. So most of the protocols that we're seeing, it's taking about 3 to 6 milligram once a week, 4 weeks on, 8 weeks off. So very low dose. So with this, again, if you think about it as you get older, and what I recommend for my patients who want to try it, again, I want everybody listening. We're not giving medical advice here. This is only for informational purposes. Anybody wants to try this, don't take it on my advice. Go see your doctor. Go see your medical provider. But what I see in my practice and in other practices of other longevity physicians, after getting informed consent with their patients, that's the most consistent dose that I see. And that's what I see. And a lot of time we can follow epigenetic aging. We can follow biological aging. And in a lot of patients, you'll see a decrease in their biological aging. There's one caveat to this though. If you stay on it too long, if you take too high a dose, and it's very individual, that's why we don't have a consensus yet. It can cause immune dysfunction where you're more prone to get infections. Some patients get mouth sores. Some patients get high levels of lipids or insulin resistance. So there are some side effects to it. But again, I'm going to say that this is the one that shows the most consistent results in over different species, that it can really improve epigenetic aging. It can really go down to the cell signaling, and the most proven so far. And the direction that we're going to go in, and we'll do a wrap up at the end of this, is what scientists are looking at. Instead of thinking about just one molecule, they'll see a lot of different molecules at low dose so that you can hit your cells from all kinds of different angles. But rapamycin already is part of a cocktail that a lot of longevity physicians use as part of their cocktail to increase health span and improve metabolic markers. It targets mTOR, which is the growth signaling of cells. It's almost a pause or a temporary off button of cell growth. So there are studies in mice, studies in different animals. There are small human studies, but we don't have yet the gold standard randomized controlled trial to see that. One thing I've seen that they have rapamycin cream that helps with wrinkles. I'm going to tell you, I've seen good results with this. It's not systemically absorbed, but there's few websites. Again, I'm not promoting the use of anything. I'm not promoting any website, but at a lot of the conferences that I go, I see some of the vendors, and I see some rapamycin cream that could work very well for wrinkles.
Is this the currently when it's used, especially like how you were saying, especially for the longevity, the side effects that you especially mentioned, that is probably because when you are turning off that switch at that time, it's causing unwanted shut to the immunity. And then
Yes,
when it's happening, that's kind of how that's the side effect that you mentioned.
definitely. Because, life, our body is balance, right? Cells are growing, cells are dying, or something is active, something is not. There's a balance to everything. And as we get older, we don't want too much growth. We experience our growth during puberty and our younger years. As we get older, we want less mTOR signaling. For example, calorie deficit. When you eat less, you suppress mTOR. You're not into growth phase. And as you get older, you don't want to be in growth phase. So when you're my age, maybe like 50 and plus, you don't want to have your mTOR to always be on. You don't want to overeat calories. You don't want to always be gaining weight. Whereas when you're 16, 18, 20, 25, you want to gain muscle mass. You want to gain weight. You want your muscle. You want your mTOR to be as active. So if you take rapamycin and you take too high a dose, or you stay on it too long, let's say you're a cancer patient, the side effects is that you're prone to infections because it suppresses your immune system. It suppresses your white blood cell activation. It suppresses your muscle formation. So there's a lot of things that it does that can cause side effects. And, we're going to always caveat all of those medication with when a patient comes and sees me and interested in any of those, before we go there, remember our pillars of health. Before we start going into those fancy meds, are you eating well? Is your nutrition optimized? Is your exercise optimized? Is your sleep optimized? Are your hormones and vitamins optimized? Once you fill all those holes, that's when you want to go for those extra crutches for longevity. If you take rapamycin and you have diabetes, you don't exercise, you eat bad, you're not sleeping, it's not going to do anything. So I see it as the cherry on top.
That makes sense. And what about now the second one, metformin?
Metformin is actually a medication that we use to treat type 2 diabetes. It helps improve blood sugar. It helps decrease sometimes, it's usually the first line of action with somebody who was diagnosed with diabetes. We put them on metformin. But can you use metformin also for non-diabetics and for its longevity or health span benefits? And there is where there's more studies, there's more robust evidence that shows that. So there was a really good study that showed that diabetics who take metformin overall live longer and have fewer of the chronic illnesses. And if you compare metformin to other diabetic treatments, it was positive, showing that patients live longer, even if with the other, for example, they compared the treatment of diabetics on metformin versus insulin. The patients on insulin would have better blood sugar, but they have a higher risk of heart disease, or they died earlier. The patients on metformin, even if their blood sugar didn't get as low, they live longer, they had less chronic disease. So when they saw that, they're like, is there something to metformin? So we started looking at metformin for non-diabetics. Can it extend life? And the way that it extends that, and rapamycin has a lot of those same things, it's through its action via autophagy. Autophagy is basically cellular cleanup. It's almost your recycling of debris, cellular debris, dead cells, old cells. That's what autophagy is, right? So again, we always talk about this, that our body, it's like a big factory. We eat food, we take in fuel. We need to turn that food into energy, into ATP via our mitochondria, into all of our cells. But as we make energy, we also produce waste. So the balance of life is you want your cells to be very efficient at making energy and not making a lot of waste. When you're young, your cells are very efficient. You make good energy, good ATP, very little waste, and your cells are able to get rid of the waste very easy. As we get older, our cells become less effective at that cleanup, that autophagy. What can you do to increase autophagy? Because we see that if you can increase autophagy, that is the best way to increase longevity. Metformin has been shown to positively impact autophagy. It helps with mitochondrial biogenesis. It makes more mitochondria. So we've extrapolated the data from diabetics to see that realistically, there's good data for metformin. So when you look at metformin, we have really good studies to back it up. And what's really interesting, there's a great study that is ongoing right now that's going to answer that question. It's called the TAME trial, where they're looking at about 3,000 older individuals, about 60 to 80 years old. And it's a randomized controlled trial that they put on metformin. And we're going to have the results very soon. Within the next year and a half, we'll have the results. And that's the gold standard to see whether it really helps with autophagy. So far, again, I'm going to just resume what I just said. There is good data in diabetic patients. There is some small data in non-diabetic patients, but we don't have the gold standard yet. It works by increasing autophagy and helping cells becoming more efficient at handling cellular waste. So I like metformin because it is a low risk, high reward medication. It's unlike rapamycin, the side effect profile is very mild. Worst thing we see with metformin for side effects is GI disturbance. Some people may get a little bit diarrhea, some indigestion. Some people cannot tolerate it. It also can decrease your vitamin B12. So if anybody's taking metformin, I always tell them, check your B12. You may see a lower B12 level. So those are the main side effects we see with metformin versus what I was just saying. So for rapamycin. So, like more side effects on rapamycin, although there's a little more studies, and mechanistically, rapamycin would make more sense. Metformin, it's more calorie restriction, autophagy, really good data on diabetic patients, not gold standard studies yet on non-diabetic patients. So if you're going to ask me as a longevity physician, Doc, what should I do? Low risk, high reward, metformin is an easy one to take. If you have no side effects from it, you can tolerate, you have no diarrhea, you check your vitamin B12, that's an easy one to go on.
But only for diabetic, right? Not for non-diabetic.
No, so that's what I was saying. For non-diabetics, we can extrapolate. So again, for non-diabetics, we're going to wait for the results of this trial, the TAME trial. But in the meantime, for diabetics, all of my diabetics are either on a GLP-1 or on metformin, because those two have been shown to definitely extend life. If you are non-diabetic, healthy, a typical patient that I see at my biohacking, longevity clinic, if you're really interested in longevity, metformin is an easy one because I have the data on diabetic patients. I can say, okay, and because they're so low risk with it, it's an easy one for my patients to do. When my patients ask me about rapamycin, we have a longer discussion because there's more possibility of side effects. So in some of my patients, I use both. I'll use metformin at low dose, long term, rapamycin at the lower dose intermittently. But again, it's very individual type treatment. I go over all the risk and benefits and the evidence that we have with each patient.
Understood. And the NAT plus boosters now.
So now this is the buzzword of social media. NAD plus, right? NAD plus is one of the most important molecules that helps your body make energy. Again, we go back to the basic of the factory. Our body is an engine. We're taking food, our body needs to transform that into energy that we can use to power our brain, power our heart, our cells, our muscles, everything, right? So the basic unit of energy that our body makes from food is called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and it's done through our mitochondria. NAD plus is the last coenzyme, the last molecule that helps our body turn sugar, usually turn any kind of food, into ATP. So you need NAD plus to make ATP, to make energy. So it's a very important. Again, I did a previous podcast on NAD plus, and it was really interesting because my daughter's studying biology. She's in 12th grade, and she's studying the cell cycle, what's called the Krebs cycle. How does our body makes energy from glucose? And there was NAD plus. So I've been studying NAD plus from high school. I studied in college. I studied in med school, and it's still there because it is one of the most important coenzymes in our body to make energy. So does NAD plus work? And when we talk about NMN, NMN is the precursor to NAD. So NMN and NAD, it's the same pathway. It's just NMN is the precursor. NAD plus is the actual molecule, and you can take it in different ways. You can take the NMN as a powder form or in tablets. You can take NAD plus in powder or tablets. There's multiple supplements who have this. Now we're doing intravenous infusion of NAD plus, also subcutaneous injection of NAD plus. The reality is we have no data for longevity for NAD plus. It's not like there's data in different species like Metformin or Rapamycin, but we have a lot of small data that shows that NAD plus is important to make energy. And again, as we get older, our body production of NAD plus decreases. So what can you do to maintain those levels or even increase those levels as we age? Again, once I look at all the data, again, we don't have solid data. There's no randomized control studies that show that NAD plus increased longevity. We don't even have any studies that show that it increased energy output. It is that we have a mechanism of action that makes sense. We've seen that so far that there's no significant side effects with NAD plus supplementation. And NAD plus, again, in NMN, they do way more than just make energy. It's also good for anti-inflammation. It's for DNA transcription. It is for brain power. The way that our body makes protein, you need NAD plus. So it does so much in the body than just energy. So it's really important. And, like I was saying, as we age, the body makes less of everything that it needs. We make less testosterone. We make less estrogen. We make less insulin. We make less NAD plus. So should you consider NAD plus as part of your stack for wellness and longevity? For longevity, I cannot recommend it. For wellness, definitely. Again, I don't have any controlled trial to show that, but now I've been doing this for 20 years. I see what works, what doesn't. I may not need a complete study, although I love to talk about evidence-based medicine. But I have to tell you, I tried NAD plus myself, and there's no question I can feel the difference. I've tried the NMN powder, which I like, but the one that works the best for me, I do subcutaneous injections. And when you take it, you feel an energy push. And my patients feel the same. And when you look at, again, the cellular pathways, you understand why you feel better when you take NAD+. The big caution of NAD+ is, can it increase the risk of cancer if you already have a cancer cell that's there and you give fuel to that cancer cell to grow more rapidly? It's a theoretical worry. I don't think there's any studies to show that. But on all of my patients, I would not give them NAD+ if they have an active tumor. So that's always the caution. The other worry also is, if you take NAD+ or any of those supplements, will your body stop making its own production of NAD+? Or what's the optimal dosing for NAD+? We don't have exact numbers on this, but I'm going to tell you, just by experience and the number of patients we've been seeing, and every time you go to conferences, longevity conferences, all the doctors, we all exchange our protocols. There's a pretty good consensus that most patients do well with NAD+, and we haven't seen any significant concern. The typical dose that I use for the subcutaneous NAD+, I do 50 milligram, up to 100 milligram, but most patients do 50 milligram about 3 to 5 days a week. I've tried the NAD+ IV infusion. That's a tough one. It lasts 2 to 3 hours. You get some chest pain. A lot of people get very uncomfortable while doing it. So I don't recommend IV infusion anymore. I have patients who still like to go and do it. I will not do an infusion to myself anymore. So I do my sub-Q. I also considered NMN powder. And then now we'll take a step back. We talked about 3 very powerful molecules. Especially if you look at somebody like you, Vivek, right? You're in your 30s. Should you consider taking any of those? I tell everybody, always, I'm going to reiterate that. Before you start saying this, see what you can improve in your pillars, your basics. Improve those first. That's what's going to give you the best bang for your buck. Once you start getting older, you're in your 40s, you're in your 50s, like me, you're in the 60s, what should you consider? So if you're really interested in longevity, the first thing I would consider, once again, all of your pillars have been pretty well optimized. I think metformin is the one that has the lowest risk and highest reward. Again, I'm still waiting for the TAME trial results, but I use metformin a lot. I counsel my patients about the side effects, the diarrhea, and I make sure that their B12 levels is high. Should you consider NAD plus? I love NAD plus because it's just a supplement. It's not even a prescription medication. You can buy that over the counter. It's not regulated by the FDA because it's been recognized as generally safe. I like NAD plus for wellness, to feel better, to give you more energy. Whether you decide to do the NMN powder as the precursor or you do the NAD plus subcutaneous injection, I'm all for it. Now, the big question, should you consider rapamycin? So rapamycin, I only leave that for my older patients, 50 plus. And if you're in your 60s, even more, because this is when you really want to slow down mTOR. I will have a big, long discussion on the possible risk and benefits. I will let people know that we don't have yet any large human studies to base my recommendations, but I have quite a few patients that have gone on that protocol of rapamycin that I told you about. And we've seen good anecdotal evidence that epigenetic aging goes lower. So again, Vivek, somebody like you, should you consider those medication? For somebody your age, the NAD plus may help your energy. Metformin and rapamycin, that tell you don't start looking at this unless you have insulin resistance. If you have any kind of insulin resistance and you want to, metformin may be a good one. Rapamycin, I would leave it as later and we're waiting for the studies. And what I'm excited about, Vivek, is I think where the protocols are coming in the future is they're starting to do that already, is to do a combination of all of those different molecules at very low dose and that you will take as cycles. And then that is showing a lot of benefits. And AI is helping a lot in coming with those protocols. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years with AI and the new studies that are going to come out with the gene editing progress that we're making with CRISPR that can do gene editing and completely change our manufacturing of genes. This is when we're really going to see a big extension on lifespan.
Yeah. Wow. So really, the game is going to change now with compounding together. And then once you have compounding coupled with gene editing, then it's a whole different direction that we don't even know yet.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be a guinea pig for all of those because I am the prescribing physician, but I take all of those things. I try everything I prescribe for my patients. I try. I'm deep into the research. I'm excited to see what's happening in the longevity field. And you know, again, although I call it longevity, it's health span because I don't want to live too long if I'm in bad health. If I'm suffering, if I have dementia, you know, this is not a good thing. But if you can maintain good physical function, good mental function, I want to live till I'm 120. And I see that this is possible in my lifetime. I think we're going to be able to get there.
Okay. And this was great explanation. And this is a great foundational stage set. I was even planning to ask you what ages were the last question, like what ages, which one to start, and you even answered by yourself. That was great. So why do you think these conversations are exploding right now? Like obviously, you know, there's so much, everything is going on, this focus, but is it just better science or is there something more like a, you know, cultural shift on aging and, you know, fear of decline? What do you think? Just like
I think
philosophically?
it's a combination of the two, right? And we've talked about this. I'm part of the biohacking community. Influencers are very vocal and saying this. You know, my colleagues usually say, we hate seeing influencers. I'm like, I don't like to say that because influencers are the ones that are putting the word out there, right? Me as an MD, yeah, I may have a lot of clinical experience, but I don't have a big platform like some of those influencers. So the influencers are talking about a lot of those things. Then my patients hear them and come and ask me. So I'm glad that the word is out. So I think it's a combination of two things. First, there's more of an interest from patients, from individuals to live longer and to be the better version of themselves. More people want to feel better, look better, and be in better health. Social media is fueling this because now we're in the age of information. Whereas before, if you didn't read specific journals, you would never hear about rapamycin. Now you can be scrolling on TikTok and you hear about rapamycin, right? So now and then somebody can see that and they do a deep dive, then they start learning. I get patients calling me all the time. I heard about metformin and autophagy. I heard about rapamycin. Tell me about this. I saw it on TikTok. I saw it on Instagram. I welcome those inquiries because if somebody looks at this, that means that they are more interested in learning more. And, I believe in the partnership type medicine where I want you to do your own research, you do yours, and then you come with me and I help you find the right way, what works for you. I don't like the paternalistic type of medicine that we've always had. And that still happens. A lot of doctors, a patient will go to them, they're like, oh, Dr. Google, you did your research. And doctors hate that. I actually welcome that because if you've done your research, you show me that you're interested in your health and I may help correct some of the research, quote unquote, that you've done. I may discuss it with you. I may bring my clinical or my expertise to help guide you. But I want my patients to do research. I don't want my patients to just sit down and tell me, doc, just tell me what to do. That's what we used to do. No longer. And because the age of information, that's why I love social media. I love the internet. I love that there's so many more podcasts, so many people like, my God, Gen Z, all they do is listen to podcasts. All they do is listen to YouTube and they see influencers. There's fiber maxing is one of the words that's trending on social media. Eating enough fiber. I'm glad we're talking about this. When I talk to fiber to my patients, it's boring. Influencers make health fun.
Hmm. I like that. I like to say that even to the clients I work with, especially because I work on the core spectrum of people who are in healthcare, right? And I tell that I like the digital native generation who is going in all out, challenging and then my job becomes like, how do I make sure I get your voice out there with them so that we can get the right voices, the people who are credentialed, the people who are of science to be there and get, all the validation. So it plays that balance, right? Like how you're saying. Um, if someone is listening to this conversation right now, and of course you talked about a few red flags here, but who should absolutely not try these things? Because it's easy to fall into these traps, social media, as is the information is available. But is there like a line that you draw, like, okay, these people, keep away from this for sure, or
If you
don't do
have active cancer, a tumor, if you're a cancer survivor, be careful with all of those things. Make sure you check with your doctor or with your oncologist because those are where you really, if you have any kind of chronic illness, be careful because if you take medications, you want to be sure that there's no interaction. So for example, NAD plus NMN, it's an over the counter. Anybody can try that. But if you have cancer, an active tumor, you want to be careful. You still want to check your doctor. To get metformin or rapamycin, you need that by prescription. So you will need to discuss that with your doctor. So again, you may hear it from an influencer, but don't take it from an influencer. Hear and learn from an influencer, then go to your doctor, but not any doctor. If you go to your regular trained, conventionally trained doctor, they'll shut it down. Find a biohacking longevity specialist who is open to discussing it with you. And it's a very personalized decision between you and your physician, whether it's a good choice for you. So I take my time to discuss all of those different molecules with my patients. And, I look at all those different molecules as tools. I always ask patients, before we say that, what are your goals? Where are you now? What do you want to get to? Just like Bob Marley. Open your eyes and look within. Are you satisfied with the life you're living? You need more energy physically, mentally, or sexually. Let's go over the tools that we can use. And if your goal is, I'm worried about chronic disease, I want to extend my life, I want to be sure that I have long, healthy life, those are the tools that we can use. And always fill the basics first.
that is the fundamental that you always stress. And that is the great thing about you, even despite being a physician in the field, that you promote that. But before we go this route, you need to first make sure your benchmarks, those you assess, let's try all those things done. You reach minimum threshold there. Then is the next step. Then we can figure it out, which is obviously, I admire you for that for the most because, it's easy to feel that you go one route, right? So that's important that you bring that perspective in everything you say.
And, people listening to us could say, oh my God, this guy's repetitive. But I'm
Yeah.
repetitive on this because I stress how important that is. And this is where sometimes patients don't want to hear that because it's hard work. Just give me a pill, doc. No, 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 no. Let's work on this. You need to fill your basics. You need to optimize your diet, optimize your sleep, optimize your exercise. Then we can talk about all those things. If I need to give you something to optimize them, I will. But we cannot argue on those three fundamentals.
I had this question, by the way, that are we chasing pills to avoid the basics? Like, because at the end, nutrition, sleep, movement, mindset, all those things, right? Can we really outpill poor lifestyle? Is there some evidence, I don't know, from your patient's experience, has happened? I'm sure there's something there.
Well, for example, GLP-1, I always talk about this. GLP-1 because it helps control appetite. Some patients come to me, they're like, nope, I'm not going to stop eating this. I'm not going to stop eating sugar. And GLP-1 changed their mindset. So yes, I will get somebody who comes to me is not doing their basics and want to live better. I will give them the tools. That's when I'll use GLP-1, testosterone, fasting, but I will not go with those more advanced molecules yet. I will use some of my tools to get those basics. Now, once we do this, let's go more advanced. Now, in the future, for example, there's a medication that they're trying to develop. They call it exercise in a pill. Supposedly that's going to help you build muscle without exercising. I'm waiting to see that, but there'll be side effects with this. Humans cannot get away from this. You need good sleep, good nutrition, good muscle mass, and movement. You cannot get away. I don't care what we're going to invent. The basics are never going to change.
Yeah. I think that's the core of it. Like, you need to still check the fundamentals, not hope that something will magically just fix everything without having impact on something else, right?
You need to have a strong base. That's why, the image of the best life code when we first started was a triangle. All of those molecules are at top. Before you get to the top, you have a strong base. The base needs to be strong and then you add on top.
Now that makes sense why supplements were on the top.
On the top. Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Fantastic.
You get it exactly. What
Yeah.
is the base? Nutrition, sleep, exercise.
Movement, yeah.
Then hormones, then supplements and all those molecules.
Yeah. Wow. This is, I feel like we connected all the dots again. This is fantastic. Wow.
And for all of our listeners, I hope it's starting to make sense. Health at the end of the day is very simple. If you stick with the basics, it's not easy to achieve, but the concept is easy. Work at getting better at it. And that's why I love the concept of the getting 1% better every day. You're not going to achieve health overnight. But if you're consistent, if you're persistent, if you make small changes, and remember what I always said, while you're doing this, you're still into gratitude. You're still into love. You're not into destination happiness. That changes your life.
Wow. On that note, we will conclude this episode. Again, very much information filled. We just did the whole longevity pharma tour on this episode, which was great. Thanks for sharing your insights once again, Dr. Rudy. Any last word from you before we conclude today's conversation?
I hope people learn a lot of this. There was a lot of basic science. There was a lot of big words that I use, a lot of studies that I see are going to come up. But what I want people to say is first, feel the basics. Second, get excited about what's happening in medicine. Is we are going to find the technology and the molecules to help extend life. We are living right now science fiction. It's like the Jetsons is now. In medicine, I'm excited about longevity medicine regenerative medicine. Well, we're going to do our next podcast. Most likely it's going to be on stem cells because the improvement of this are amazing. So I want people to get excited about what health has and that we can really achieve optimal human health, but we never forget the basic.
There you have it. So that is the best life code. Never forget the basics. And that's how we get to it, right? So once again, Dr. Rudy, thank you so much. This was great and appreciate your time. And we'll be back again with another fantastic episode next time.
Yes, sir. Vivek, always a pleasure.